Hi there, I am Tony Veteto, and I have been managing taguealliance. We're an SIAA master agency for the last 20 plus years, and we have a little over 100 members here in San Diego, Orange, and Riverside counties. And we have worked with a ton of members ranging from pure scratch all the way up to some larger agents. And over these last 20 years, there's a handful of things that seemingly, bubble up that are critical when you are starting or considering starting an independent agency. And what I'm going to go through over the next few minutes is by no means an exhaustive list, but hopefully it'll provide some helpful information for you on your decision journey about, should you start an agency? Should you maybe work as a producer for a while? Things you should consider and such. So hopefully this information will be helpful to you. It's just straight up. And again, we have no hidden agenda. We're trying to add some value. And if we can attract some potential good members who may be interested in joining our group to the fold, that's awesome. All right, let me get into this. So we're calling this the Essential Startup Agency Checklist. When you are considering agency ownership, there's a great book called the E-Myth, E-myth, like mythical, and that talks about being an entrepreneur versus being a basically a technician, where you can sell insurance. That may not mean that you're going to be a really good agency owner, because sales versus administration, producing versus agency ownership are definitely very different roles and responsibilities. And we need sales. This is a sales business. Everything starts with a sale. But once you've made some sales, there's a whole bunch of stuff, right, that we all know goes on beyond that. And then taking the owner's mindset is critical. So really for you, if you don't already have a proven track record of sales success, it doesn't necessarily have to be insurance, but you have to have proven to yourself and proven through actual results that you can produce sales. You know how to market, you know how to generate activity, you know how to have multiple conversations, you know how to close, right? The basic sales, and then the follow-ups with people you didn't close, setting meetings, all of that activity, all of that stuff that goes into being a successful insurance producer. If you have that at your core, then that may mean that, okay, you've got a foundation that could be helpful for you in considering starting your own agency. Because again, you have to come out of the gate being able to sell and generate that activity to create the leads. So very important. But as a producer, you can see here, you definitely have to know your coverage. So if you're newer to the insurance business, but you have a proven sales background, you're going to be spending a good amount of time educating yourself, not just your core insurance license, but the actual true training on coverage and things. Understanding your carriers, building your client trust, right? These are things that are core to a producer. As an owner, you're laying the foundation for your business, all the logistics, all the systems, right? You've got to deal with licensing and E&O and get your cyber and make sure that you've got everything set up with your FEIN number and just all the compliance and normal stuff, in addition to making sure that your file documentation is up to snuff and everything's good. And of course, focusing on growth. There's a little cliche saying that if you're not growing, you're dying, right? And in the insurance business, we don't retain 100% of our clients each year. So naturally, you have to outgrow that attrition in your book, right? So growth is paramount. And then having an operating system, which is you can make a sale, but what happens post-sale and everything that comes after that. So that all these things are really important things to be thinking about. And we have to be honest with ourselves. What do we actually enjoy doing on a daily basis? What truly drives your passion? What truly gets you energized and going? If sales are the thing for you, then great. That's a good start. If you absolutely do not want to be in the minutia of running an agency, then you either need to figure out how you're going to get through it long enough to hire somebody, or if you're really, really great at the minutia and the administration, but weaker in sales, you need to figure out how you're going to bring in strong sales capabilities, right? Whether that's through marketing, target marketing, getting producers, whatever it may be. So these are kind of mindsets, right, that you need to think through. Now, when we think about kind of generally kind of five big-ish buckets, you've got your basic foundation, right? So you've got to get your licenses, get your DOI, your Department of Insurance Agency entity license set up. You've got to get your tax IDs. You've got to get all of your bank accounts, get your BOP and work comp and E&O and all of the stuff that you need in place, right? You've got to, obviously, if people don't know who you are, they're not going to be aware that you're even available to do business with them. So your branding, your website, making sure that you've got a really strong, your main real estate online, your digital real estate strong, and that you've got kind of your social media presence planned out and all of that good stuff. When you're looking at your office and financial tools, a lot of times when you're a startup agency, you don't need to have an office. You do generally, it's good, advisable to have some type of a co-working space, just to have a place to go to meet insurance companies or clients if you need to. But in today's world, most of what we do can be digital on Zoom, and phone and email still. So that part, you could probably save some money unless you're going to have staff that you want to have in person. Um, a lot of these agencies work with some hybrid or remote teams. You can make it work. But you've got basically your accounting, how are you going to do that? What computer equipment, what technology stack, all of those things. When you think about your workflows, right? Your agency management system, your rating platforms, how are you going to store things, e-signature. So you think about, like, if you're currently a producer right now and you think about all the tools you're using each day, you got to have all of those probably plus more, right? So if you're the agency owner, you got to be thinking about all of those systems and procedures that you need to put in place. And then just really being go-to-market ready. So you do have to have a game plan. If you don't have a game plan, you're just going to flounder. You won't have clear goals. You won't have target markets. You won't know what you're doing when you wake up in the morning. You won't know how to benchmark. Is your activity converting? Is it not? Do you need to pivot? Whatever. So having a clear target market, writing out your sales plan, a CRM like Agency Zoom, or some other way where you're tracking your pipeline. So all of your top of funnel pipeline could be target lists, it could be inbound leads, qualifying those leads and getting them quoted and then ultimately bound. And then everybody you don't close, following up, right? Using your technology and your automation to keep your pipeline solid and filled up. So foundation first. You need to get your entity set up, your business entity, all of your licensing. Make sure you've got the finances. If you're a startup, first year, total hell. You're not going to make hardly any money. Some people do, but generally speaking, you're just pouring the foundation. Second year, a little easier. Third year, obviously a little easier. What we've seen over the years, over the last 20 plus years for startups, it's usually the years 5 to 8 where you start to get the flywheel going. But when you're first getting going, you just need to make sure that you've got some of your core, right? Your legal entity set up, you've got your business name, agency name, you've got all your licensing, you've got your tax ID numbers. You're going to need, for your agency, you're going to need a operations account where all of your commissions and income and expenses go. And then you have your trust account, which is for client money that is held in your trust, that's not your money, that goes to the insurance companies, so wholesalers. Payment processing capabilities. You're going to need some your professional liability stuff for your agency. So a lot of little logistical things you got to be thinking through. I mentioned this a minute ago, but your website and your Google My Business page and your social media, right? These are really, really critical places that you need to have really good content. And now with all the AI LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, and others, your content needs to be showing up really strongly there. So make sure that you've got, good, solid presence. It's super duper important. And you got to have a plan for that. Starting with your plan with your workflow, like what's your process? Like a lot of times people buy technology thinking it's going to solve a problem, but they haven't defined the problem that they should actually buy a fit for purpose tool to solve the problem. So sometimes people get it twisted with putting the cart before the horse. So you definitely need to make sure that you understand, okay, here's how my accounting stuff's going to work. This is how I kind of want my, you know, file documentation to be. And then from there, you can kind of be like, okay, well, what type of computer hardware do I need? Am I going to use Dropbox? Am I going to use Google Drive? Am I going to use some other type of backup? Planning your first 12 months, right, of financials. So you know that you kind of have your runway. And it's really important, right, to make sure that you run as lean as you can in the beginning. Not so lean that you starve your business, right, from growth, but lean enough that you're not overspending on things where you don't need to overspend. So even before you start writing business, right, while you're in this setup phase, really important to just kind of think about like, some of the things that you need to get in place or start thinking about doing some demos on and stuff like that. Obviously, if in California, we have a DMV requester code, this authorizes you to run motor vehicle reports for insurance purposes. LexisNexis is the database that tracks all the claims. And so you need these. For LexisNexis, you have to have a sponsoring insurance company. So that requires having a direct appointment. So that one generally comes a little later, but you can definitely apply for your requester code. That takes 6 to 8 weeks usually. Start kind of researching your management systems, just so you kind of get a look and feel for what you like, and then planning kind of your workflow documentations, at least in these core buckets, right? Your new business, your endorsements, stuff like that, just so you have an idea in your head. When you start scratch, you want to document your processes so that when you hire your first virtual assistant or your first support person, account manager, customer service rep, whatever, that they're coming into organization, not chaos that just lives in your brain. Very important. Having a clear target market, super helpful. Obviously, if you're doing auto and home, a target market could be 45 to 55 working professionals in these types of industries with 2 kids and 2 cars that need auto home umbrella package, maybe some inland marine. So, like that's an example of a personalized target, right? Or something that's a little more specific. Generally, when we think about target market, we think about I want to go after restaurants. I want to go after fast food restaurants. I want to go after fast food restaurants in San Diego. I want to go after Italian fast food restaurants in San Diego. Very quickly, you can slice and dice your target market. Very important to kind of know because that helps you with your marketing, that helps you with the content that you put on your website, helps you with outbound email, just helps you with focus on the carriers you're going to work with, the wholesalers you're going to work with, just top to bottom, having a more clear target market makes your life easier and much more effective. Sales readiness means more than having a marketing plan. So definitely you need to have your marketing and sales plan. Just even if it doesn't need to be like 50 pages, but just something concise that you know you've got a track that your train is going to run on. You need to have a CRM and your pipeline. This is so critical. Like we see this with agencies all the time that do not have a system, an actual technology platform system like Agency Zoom, as an example. Good system, it's not the only one out there, but that helps you manage your pipeline, doing email, text campaigns. They're kind of quoted, not sold, pipeline, things like that. So there's follow-up that's always happening. This follow-up discipline is really important and you can automate a lot of it, but there's a point where you have to do the email, you have to make the phone call. So that having that discipline is important. Setting up your service standards, how you're, not how, who you're going to originally prospect to. I think this is great. It's actually a real list of people, not just aspirational, like I said. So in my restaurant example, it wouldn't just be the type of restaurant. It would be, I've gone to directmail.com or some other list provider or used ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to do a web scrape for fast food Italian restaurants in San Diego in these zip codes, right? And then see what it comes back with. So, that's an example where you have a specific target list. So this is just talking a little bit about the business mindset, right? Sometimes producers will just be like, hey, I'm just going to do stuff and then it'll all work out. But they don't really track some of their numbers. And some of the numbers are very simple, but very important. How many quotes are you doing? Where are the quotes coming from? What are your best lead sources? How many of those quotes do you convert? So if you're buying internet leads, for example, and you get 100 leads and you quote 2% and you close 5% of what you quoted, that's pretty atrocious for the amount of work that you're putting in. But if you're doing target market for restaurants and you've quoted the same 100 fast food Italian restaurants, but you've actually quoted 30 of them and you've bound like 15, then oh, hey, this is a better return on my investment in time. So understanding your quote to bind, lead sourcing, the funnels, all of that, how your retention's doing. Retention is critical to your health of your agency, the value of your agency, and the growth of your agency. If you write 100 policies and you lose 30 of them out the door, you have 70% retention. That's atrocious. If you are in a situation where you're running 85, 90, 93%, 95% retention, your new business each year has that much more growth impact on your total revenue the next year, right? So everything compounds faster, the better your retention is. Building your centers of influence, referrals, things like that, watching your cash flow, daily activity. What are the actions that you're doing to grow your agency? Very, very important, right? So these are all pretty simple things, but sometimes we lose sight of what is simple. And if you don't know your numbers, you're in trouble. And I can tell you with certainty, because I've spent many thousands of hours with insurance carriers and the folks that work at carriers, they run on the numbers. As a small business, a lot of times you'll run on your feelings and you'll run on just your general activity. The companies run on the numbers, and so you really, really need to understand your numbers and have that mindset, when you're running your agency as a business. Very important. Almost done. Almost done. A couple more slides. Um, Most costly mistakes, right? Couple things. Starting without a realistic runway. Like I told you a few minutes ago. First year is total hell. You're not going to make any money. First 3 years, you just got to survive. Years 5 to 8 get easier. If you don't have enough money or a second income in your house where you can actually, or savings to draw on, where you can survive those startup years, really critical, because number one rule in business in my mind is stay in business. That's the number one rule in business. So having the realistic financial runway is important. Um, Getting tools, trying to solve problems that you haven't even defined yet with tools, right? Not doing that. We talked about that earlier. Treating your website as a brochure, not having really good quality data capture, good content, telling your story, good cultural setup. That's important. Messing with trust accounting. This will get you in hot water very fast if you're doing non-admitted type excess surplus lines business, and you're dealing with client money coming in. Very, very critical that you treat that you're always in trust and you treat it well. And then doing activity randomly and chaotically before you have a game plan, right? A target market. We talked about that. So those are all important things that can be costly mistakes. Preparation is a key to life. I've told our kids this. Preparation is not the key to life, but it is a key to life. It's very important. When you show up prepared to something, you're going to do better. Um, you have to be honest with yourself, and you need to get ready if you're going to start an agency. And a lot of that work happens before you even open the doors, right? And you're preparing yourself and the business to try to hopefully have success once you open the doors and launch. So very important. Um, Build out the capabilities you need before launch, like we're talking about. Not all of them, but some of them, right? It's helpful. It's helpful. And hopefully some of the things we're going through in this video are giving you some things in your mind. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I need to make sure I do that. And we have to be brutally honest with ourselves, because this is your real life, it's your real money. And like in our case, if we were considering you for membership in our group, it's our real lives and teams' lives, and it's our real money that's on the line too, right? So everybody's looking to for good alignment and good timing. And if it's just not, just don't, you can reconsider. You can just continue being a producer. You can take a little different path, build your capital savings and resources or whatever. But it's important, right, to make sure that you're ready. So hopefully this checklist helps you as we went through this. In the end of the day, what we're trying to do is just provide some good value, at least, and this is my little closing sales pitch. For taguealliance as an SIA master agency, again, here in San Diego, Orange, and Riverside counties, we basically have a couple of simple goals. Number one is we're here to try to help our members make more money. That's what every business is trying to do, for-profit businesses. Number two is we are here with our heart, our intent, our efforts, and everything to serve the members that we choose to allow to come in to membership within the group. You don't have to be the biggest, but we have to have a good cultural fit. You have to be driven. You have to have the financial runway. You've got to have a game plan. You've got to be able to generate the activity, right, to sustain yourself and to build your agency. Otherwise, everybody's just wasting time. And time is the one thing we can't get back, right? So hopefully this has been helpful. We're going to try to have some other additional content around, if you're on this startup journey or considering the startup journey. And I do hope that it's been useful information to you. My last call to action or ask of you, if you got some value out of this, if you're seeing this on YouTube, yeah, subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate it. If you're on the website reading this or watching this and you're interested in membership, just click the no pressure alignment chat link, and then it'll ask you some questions, and then we can set up a time to chat. So, and then just see if there's a fit. And if there is, great. And if there's not, no big deal. It'll be nice to meet you. And hopefully this added some value to you and your day. Appreciate you if you watched this whole thing. You stuck with me. Thank you. Have a great day. Peace.